Welcome everyone to another Cardano Seminar. As always, these sessions are here to support ecosystem builders and contributors by providing a platform where builders can provide value through education and insights into what they're building. It's also a platform where builders can interact and receive direct feedback from the Cardano Foundation staff. Today with us is Karsten, who will introduce the Chimera payment system and how its account-based architecture enables fast, scalable, and instant transactions. Karsten will cover how businesses can issue commodity tokens linked to real-world products and simplify payments. We'll also look at how Chimera uses off-chain validation and metadata snapshots to stay efficient and lower cost while still maintaining security through reconciliation with the Cardano blockchain. Karsten will also walk us through the payment flow, compare traditional processes with Chimera's real-time experience, and outline how it removes the minimum ADA requirements. And of course, how it smoothens the developer workflows. Karsten, we're grateful for you to join us. I'm handing it over to you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Yeah, as you said, my name is Karsten Siebert. I'm in the Cardano environment 2020. So I'm also a founding member of Intersect. Before working in the blockchain business, I was working in satellite communication, internet via satellite. So we started to bring a long time ago satellite from the US to Europe. And now, as blockchain is moving up, I decided to join in 2020 and to work on the technology. So I'm rather not in crypto like you will probably understand crypto in terms of trading. I'm more in the field of blockchain and seeing what the technology can do for existing applications of our existing environments. I also have to mention before we start that I normally don't build anything new. I just first I look at the existing technologies, if they can be taken, adapted to my needs. And then if not, I normally decide why not, or I see why not, and then I decide whether it makes to develop something new or different. And this is also the reason why this payment system, because my requirements were pretty different. So it's not replacing or something of the existing technology. It's just that I thought the technology doesn't meet yet my requirements. Because I'm working in payment systems, we might start with the presentation with the first slide. And most of you probably remember how we started. We started banking the unbanked, and I still want to help the people to get the little money they earn quickly to their pockets rather than using the banks. What you will see in the presentation that you might not be satisfied with the kind of decentralization that I'm proposing here. This is related to my needs, and several points my needs do not cover decentralization very well. As of now, you see the numbers: 300 in the US, more than 400 million in South America. All the populations require instant payments. And the location where I'm in allows, for instance, payments from telephone numbers, from emails in less than a second. So I was setting up a wish list, and then I was thinking about what Cardano is able to provide. What we have today is we are already regulated, and this is really cool because most blockchains are not regulated. Currencies which are you are allowed to pay with this, and you are allowed to use it. Everybody knows about the 70. So we'll see if USDC comes or not. But important is that the blockchain is one of the few where you can pay today. So the next, yes. And so I was identifying where I see the challenges in the blockchain today. So we have pretty much high delays in the finality of transactions. We have, due to the nature of the Cardano tokens, we have fee volatility depending on the price of the token itself. The transfer cost for native tokens is pretty high if the tokens flow from one wallet to the other. So these are things that has to be thought of. And thinking about Hydra and other level 2 solutions, I thought it is quite complex to implement a simple payment system based on this core technology. So as I said before at the beginning, I was testing existing technologies like Hydra, and I don't use it because it's still a little bit complex and limited in the features. What the idea of today's seminar? So with the solution, what I'm going to present to you, I think we can bring down I think it is possible to bring down the payment value to as little as one Lovelace. This allows us to introduce micropayment to the system. With the solution, I tried to bring down the finality to less than a second, 200 milliseconds. The reason for that is there are trade-offs. The trade-off is that the finality moves from level 1 to level 2. I will show you later on how this looks like. The inefficiency around minting the time, the cost, and transferring Cardano native tokens using the minimum ADA, I'm introduced a new Cardano native token type, which is called short-term tokens, which just exist on level 2, which helps, for instance, traders or sellers of goods to use those tokens only as long as they sell something and then they disappear. And there's no need to bring them on level 1. And I introduced also many people talk about the X402 to Cardano, which means that you immediately can make a payment just by sending the payment requirement. I tried to contact some of the wallet vendors who follows me on Twitter. You saw that I asked them why they are still just implementing scanning addresses rather than scanning complete products, which would make it very easy for clients to use their wallets to purchase something in a shop. So we'll talk about this also. The traditional payment procedure in Cardano is the seller offers something. I get a wallet address. I get an amount I have to pay. I make the payment using my address, which goes to the layer 1. I have to wait for the finality of the chain. The seller proves, and then almost 30 seconds have been around. So the problem I saw here is that this time is not acceptable for users in a point of sale. It might be inside the community, but outside the community, it's very unlikely that users will use this kind of service if they have to wait 30 seconds. So I am introducing a level 2 solution to that, which is called, payment clearing, a payment head. I call it Chimera because it uses UTXO model for asynchronous transfer between the level 1 and addresses that exist in level 2. And I use the accounting model, what you know from standard banking. So those two models are merged in a head and work independently, which makes it very fast for transactions to be handled. So here it starts where decentralization is a little bit more centralized system. But anyway, because I'm coming from the user side, I saw this as a necessity to bring the time down for finality. And as we are talking about professional services, there are always service level agreement between the payment clearinghouse and the customers. So I don't see this as a problem. As long as the synchronization between the L2 and the L1 is always intact. So that's why you have the transaction conciliation, where every transaction coming from L2 to L1 is monitored and brought into the accounting system for verification. What allows us this asynchronous traffic for withdrawals and deposits, the level 2 system works totally independent of the communication between the head and the level 1. So you can transfer tokens to the level 2, and then you simply start like a virtual payment system where all your deposit information is brought into an accounting system. And by default, there is no change that the seller offers the product. The buyer now, instead of going direct to level 1, he goes to level 2, and the level 2 can acknowledge to the seller later if the payment has been made or not, which brings the time down to less than a second. And then once this was working, I started to improve and implemented the simple PayPal feedback, so that the seller can implement a link where the clearinghouse will immediately after receiving the payment acknowledge the seller that he has been paid, and he can now immediately provide the product or shipment, whatever its requirement. This works fully independent of the level 1. So coming back to centralized, decentralized, this you can think of this as a little sex in the decentralized Cardano world. And with this solution, I can bring down the time to less than 200 milliseconds. So we are now already at Swift level, which is accepted by normal clients. Going further, I started to implement tokenization on level 2, which allowed sellers to tokenize their product directly. So instead of selling the physical product, they can now sell the token, and the physical product can be delivered afterwards. So in increasing the portfolio of tokenized, sellable, tradable, and exchangeable tokens, we can bring down the delay from buying a service to less than 150 milliseconds on normal development machines I used. And because the payment service is included in a payment head. And big companies could just install this little head at their premises, and they wouldn't have to take or go to a remote Chimera head to settle the payment. They can do it immediately themselves and then adjust with level 1 if they want to synchronize the information. The final solution, what is now in operation, is to bring more security into the system. So then the current solution is fully keyless, which means there are no keys on the head. Keys and the external system is responsible for signing. It's a multi-sig signing requests. So a raw transaction goes out of the head and a signed transaction come into the head. I'm still working on improvement of the database, but for the application, it's even if you hack Chimera head, you are unable to steal the fund of the users because you cannot transfer it. So I sent a little article. I made a little article in Twitter regarding Fisher, who was going out during the night fishing, and he wanted to sell it immediately when he comes back. So what he was doing is he was just looking at the fish he made and generated a so-called short-term token for the fish. And this token gets immediately scanned by companies who want to buy fish. And as soon as the fisher returns, he knows that his fish has been sold already because the companies bought the tokens and are now awaiting the fish. And this makes it for him very convenient because he knows already that what he got, he sold, rather than going back and trying to sell afterwards. And this was just an example you can use with this kind of system. So, and once he sold it, he just burns the token as a confirmation. When they meet, he hands over the fish, and both parties are the deal is done. And this is what I wanted to implement with so-called short-term tokens. How does it look like? You have different types of tokens. You have the normal tokens. You have your ADA token, and you have then so-called types, which are the commodity tokens, which can be bought, which can be transferred only in level 2 between heads, and which can be transferred if required to level 1, which implies a mint. So the mint on L2 only occurs once they leave the level 2. For the overall system, as we run ahead it's a global address, and the sub addresses for each individual participant is calculated from the global address. So the coins on chain is the sum of all coins of all users in this case. And so you have an administrator in this head. So but the administrator cannot do anything in terms of dealing, because he also has no access to keys, which are outside of the system. But he is capable to see, for instance, if you click on the ADA, we have a total of 35 ADA, and in this case, we have 4 participants here, and we have each of the have a value. And you see that the minimum value for the last user is 0.815, which is less than the minimum value. So these are all virtual values for each individual users, which are taken out of the accounting system. So they are not taken from the level 1 transactions statistics. But this allows always to synchronize. That's why the status is here in green. So synchronize if the level 1 is equal to the level 2. There are 2 statistics in the system. The one is the accounting system, which is known from banks, where you make transfers between accounts inside. You make transfers between from inside to outside, or from outside to inside. The accounting system runs on 3 accounts. It has an incoming account, which is a deposit account. You have an availability account, which is the money the user has available. And you have an outgoing account, which is the account once the user wants to withdraw the tokens. So the first one, the deposit, and the last one, which is called the reserved account. This is money the user has normally no access. Once he transfers from his personal wallet to the deposit wallet, this is automatically transferred to his availability account, and then he has access to the payment. And as soon as it is in the availability account, it becomes virtual, and there is no longer a physical connection between this money and the money on the level 1. For the level 1 statistics, we still have, of course, the statistics based on the transactions. So we can monitor and audit the transactions and compare the values of the transferred amounts from level 1 to deposit, or from the reserve to the level 1, which always have to match in our case. And this is automatically checked from the system if it matches. I have to add that that Chimera head is always positive, which means because of the specific characteristics of Cardano, sending Cardano native tokens, where you need a minimum amount of ADA to transfer. If we would not use, there's a fee of 2 ADA that the head takes once you want to transfer ADA out of the head to the level 1. The reason for that is the Chimera head doesn't know really how much money it will spend for the transactions, and because the system works automatically without any user intervention, it is always cash positive in this case. So it takes a little bit more. The fee is, or what you pay is mainly 1.3, 1.4, sometimes 1.5 ADA, and the head takes 2 ADA to enable you a transfer outside the system. So, then you take, of course, the 1.5 you take with you. So the head just has 500,000 cloveless in this case. So for the transaction archive, how does it look like when I send to the blockchain? I make a withdrawal. The metadata is used to compare the information, the account information and the transaction and the head information, and then it's compared to the information what's in the head in the accounting system. And those values always have to match. That means if I transfer, for instance, 1.1 USDX, you see that this information is also on the blockchain, made to an address, and the transaction in this case is 1196, which is also written on the blockchain as information 1196. So those are the things that are compared and then verified if they match. So they always have to match in this case. I spoke about the Fisher a couple of minutes ago, and so I introduced the short-term Cardano native tokens, which are Cardano native tokens with a price. So those tokens have a price included, and those can be sold, traded internally in the head, or they can be bought outside of the head. And this enables to open a marketplace, which I have implemented on each head. You have a marketplace for the commodity token, which I was talking about. And everything what you see here on as web is also available as API. So the scan comes from AI agent asking how much, for instance, is this token, or do you have this kind of token for me, and how much is it, in terms of fish, what I was talking about. So and then he can immediately purchase this token, and the deal is done. The next application that comes on top of the payment system was, if I have a payment system, I need to tell the seller how to present the product. So how do I do this? And I implemented it using offerings which are either manually or automatically brought into the payment system. So if a seller wants to sell something, he informs the payment system that it has to sell something, which also can be done using an API. And the payment system then prepares the appropriate information of addressing. It tells the kind of the service offer, the price, the currency. So you can pay in any native token on Cardano here. So that's why at the beginning I wrote USDM, USDA. If there are any native token can be used as payment. And this information the seller can take then to present a product on the site. So, and as soon as a user then clicks on the presentation, he gets all the payment information he has to follow to make the appropriate payments. So, and once you made the payment, you see, for instance, there's a very small microtransaction. You see immediately in the transaction archive that the payment has been made, and the seller is also informed immediately after the payment has been made. A little bit more technical, how does it look like? It's an implementation of X402. So the seller gets the information where and what to pay and how much it is using X402 standard information, which is on the left-hand side. And once the user made the payment, he gets an information, okay, transfer completed, and therefore it's a one-stop payment that can be made. The seller receives the information that can he embed, next slide please, on his side, either using a text, or he can also using a QR code, so that he can embed the QR code with his product, and the user uses a wallet. That's why I was talking to the wallet manufacturers, if they can implement X402, and then he can make the payment from his wallet directly. How does it look like for the admin, for the buyer and the seller? The buyer, for instance, he pays from the account to the seller, and the seller receives, and the seller accordingly gets an information that the payment has been made from the buyer. And what you see here, it's also it's not an anonymous system. So people register. This is necessary because for the confirmation information, I have to know where to send confirmation. If you just have an address or a handle, it's impossible to inform you about any payment you have made or you received, which also is a regulatory issue once you make a payment. How does it look like in practice? To show how this works in the field, we made some tests with local markets where we just proposed use this QR code on your and leave. And we also had people having installed this little application where they could make the payment. And this was very nice seeing people just clicking on the application if they wanted to buy a specific product. Here, for instance, they just took the apples. And this was, this takes 1 second. to make a payment using the system. When you use the normal level 1 transaction, you would have to wait 20 or 30 seconds. So that's why. What's coming next? I'm going to introduce smart contracts on level 2, which means I call this payment conditions. So then you can say the payment or the delivery has been made, then the payment starts, or you pay later, buy now, pay later. All these functions are available, and then you can make your payment in the market, and depending on the available conditions, you can make the payment. This is one of the next implementation steps. What I'm working on is a multi-head operation. You have seen this in the metadata information. What's on one slide. The adding a head is very easy. You create an NFT, and the NFT is recognized by other heads, and then they start immediately to talk to each other. Then the 3-account system becomes a 5-account system, and because then you have inter-head communication, which is incoming and outgoing, which is called pending. So as soon as the other head confirms that the payment has been received, then the first head will get the appropriate information. But this is something for the next quarter to come, fully implemented, which then allows you applications like this, where I have a case study of having a multi-head gaming system, where you can generate your rewards, your weapons on one game, and you can pass it over to somebody else's. You can sell it, you can trade your guns, and you can pass it to another game. I haven't found a game vendor yet who would test this. So this is also longer term. And here we are already at the end of the presentation. What I'm currently working on is also working with publishers to publish their articles and use stablecoins on Cardano to sell articles. So as I'm not funded, I'm always looking for people who are interested in this technique to assist. And but this is something I'm talking to companies from the industry. Thank you very much for listening. This is actually the entire system, how it works, what are the plans, and why I made this kind of system.
Excellent. Thank you so much there, Karsten. Karsten, one moment before I jump into questions that I have, perhaps from the CF staff, is there any questions that you have for Karsten? Please feel free to raise your hand. I'll bring you up, and you can pose your question directly to Karsten. Before taking your questions, Karsten, how far are you at this moment in the development phase of this of the system?
The system is on mainnet, so you can log in, you can register, you can use it. I have to apologize because my development system sometimes also is the operational. So this is because I have to be very resources optimized. But it's online. It works. I use it for showcasting. As I told you, I'm working now with one publishing company, so they are really putting already the stuff on it. So we are now integrating an article system where they sell their articles as a technical. I don't want to tell too much. Because it's not ready yet. I will talk about this once it's ready.
Okay.
Everybody is invited and can use it and play, generate tokens, anything. It's live.
Okay, perfect. If you have the link that you can share in the chat, please do so. Then, of course, the staff also have access to the platform via the link. Another question that I have in the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned about. You said wallets usually scan transactions, but they should be optimized to scan for products. Can you elaborate a bit more on that, please?
If you take your other Vespa or Begin wallets and you use the scan function of these wallets, they scan just the address of the destination today. So what you then have to do, then you get through a wallet procedure, you have to enter the value what you want to transfer to this address, currency, and so on. What I would like to see is when you scan this, what I presented here, the X42, for instance, yes, that they immediately take this information and on a fingertip or whatever authentication, for instance, your face or whatever you use, what they use today, you can make the payment. This is what I wanted to see from them, and we are talking about this now.
Because you also mentioned that you are in talks with several wallet providers.
Yes. Talks, I mentioned it on Twitter, and the feedback was appropriate that 2 of them responded, and we they didn't say they are going to do it. They said, yeah, it's a nice feature. So
okay, and okay, thanks for that. To bring it back to the platform itself, what is the difference between Chimera and Hydra, for example? Because it sounds like a similar system.
Yes. To be honest, I started with Hydra because, as I told at the beginning, why should I develop something if there's excellent software around Cardano? The issue with Hydra is, and also there's another system, Hydrosia, something like that. It's the on-off. You have to manually fill with your currency, and then you pass it over to a head participant, and this is manually. And then the participants start, and the same is at the offboarding. They have to agree that they stop the communication and offboard. Chimera is asynchronously. You can, whenever you want, you just send your funds, and it's independent of the other fellows. So the Chimera is made for many people with small amounts compared to Hydra. A few participants having a lot of transactions. Well, to be honest, I'm still looking for the use case. If I have 3 or 4, Dave is working on this, and it's very interesting to see what he's doing on Twitter, presenting this stuff. So we'll see what the use case will be for that. And my use case in this was many users want to buy an article. They just put this little amount of money, and then they get it, and they can, independently of the others, they can take off their money then from this head rather than waiting for the closing.
Yeah, thanks for that. Nadia Manuel also has a question. She says here, I have a question, the following question to clarify, as I didn't quite get the following. During the payment clearing and settlement, who has custody of the funds at each step, the user or Chimera?
Chimera, fully.
And can Chimera freeze, reverse, or block a transaction once it's initiated?
If you, let's say it's not planned, but it's a software system. If you implement it, you could do it. Yes, that's true. So, because the transactions inside, the internal transactions are all virtual in the accounting system. There is no coins that are moved physically from one wallet to another if you have a Chimera transaction. So they all sit on one wallet.
Yeah, Nadia, hopefully that answered your question. If you have a follow-up question, please feel free to come up. We'll bring you. Okay, it does answer her question. Thank you, Karsten, for that. Karsten, one more question from my side. You mentioned also about the multi-sig capabilities that Chimera offer.
I just wanted to say it's not the system itself offering, it's just taking it out the signatures that normally what you would sign a transaction, it's taken off the system. So there's another server responsible for transaction signing, which is done multi-sig. So the Chimera system itself cannot sign anything. It just transfers the ready to sign transaction for signature, and then it receives the signed transaction back for submission. This is a security thing I thought it is necessary to implement if Chimera head gets hacked, which is a possibility. Perfect.
I said this was going to be my last question, but it does pose another question, because remember during the presentation you were, let me see if I can bring that up. This is the slide here. So during this slide, you mentioned that if a buyer purchases a product from the seller, right? The seller should have the capability to actually send a message to the buyer and just to confirm receipt of the funds. This sounds to me like a system whereby KYC handling would be required. Am I understanding that correctly? Because both sellers and buyers will need to register themselves.
Yes, this is yes, this is true. This system requires registration because of the communication between them. So I can, if you remember, I said you cannot send something if you don't know to whom, and I cannot send an information to I can send an information to an address, but then I would send it to the blockchain as metadata, and I don't know if he receives it. So this is, yes, this is really the intention of the product is for businesses, and it can be small businesses, but it's a business. And all the rules that are in place today for businesses apply also for this system. What I'm not sure is because it's not a bank, because we still have peer-to-peer transactions at the end, what regulators will say to this solution. But I didn't want to ask yet.
No,
but
that's okay. That's okay, because what I'm concerned about is more of the security aspect behind of this. Because if let's say users of the system is required somehow to register themselves, right, and provide some kind of KYC ML check, or go through such check, how will you deal with the security aspect and where users' information being stored? Who's doing the checks? Have you thought of that before?
No. The currently implementation is just registration and two-factor authentication. So there's not a third party asking for KYC at the moment. This implementation, what we have now here on the table. If this would be required, then this would be then we would probably talk about already in a real implementation for a customer. But at the moment, there's no customer using this. So as I told you, we are in a pilot, but the pilot works behind the publishing company. He takes all the responsibility. So there I'm safe in terms of the application. Okay. But if this would be a public, then we would have to go through a procedure with a lawyer to see what it's needed for such a system. You know?
Nadia has a follow-up question. She asks, where does KYC AML happen? So before the funds touches the protocol or inside Chimera system during the clearing? Where does that
KYC, you mean?
Yes.
No. KYC is just if you onboard if you onboard the system, then after this you rely on your address. So you have an address related to your, like an account, like in what we have in Europe, an IBAN or something like that. Mm-hmm. Here you have a Cardano address, which is your identifier.
Understood. So Nadia, that will be before the funds actually touches the protocol, because you have to first go through that, let's say, KYC AML phase. Makes a lot of sense. Thanks. Thank you, Karsten. Appreciate it. Before we close, where can people find you if they would like to interact with you, find more information, or receive more information about Chimera payment system?
My Twitter account is also available. You know, Kuban Digital.
Okay, perfect. I'll make sure to bring that up on screen afterwards, so that everyone viewing the recording afterwards know where to contact you and how to contact you. Karsten, this has been very, very informative. I'm really excited for what you're building. I love to see these type of innovations, and of course, ecosystem contributors contributing to the further advancement of Cardano. So thank you so much for all that you're doing with the development of Chimera, and please keep us up to date. We'd love to see where you go in the next, let's say, 3, 6 to 12 months from now.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present. Yes, and I will keep you up to date.